Hi, this is Deborah Swift, and I'm going to be demonstrating using Judy's Magic Cast-On, which is a cast-on frequently used at the toe of socks, other in the round projects, but actually using it as the basis of a tubular cast-on for flat knitting. So I start with my project yarn, and I get a tail like you would for a long tail cast on. In this example, I'm going to be casting on 20 stitches, so I keep enough tail for casting on at least 10, because I'm going to be wanting 10 stitches on each of 2 needles. I have here a long circular needle because I'm going to be using it in a magic loops format, but I have both tips parallel to each other and pointing in the same direction for this cast on. I'm going to start with a just twisted loop on the back needle, like so. Now I'm going to be alternating, wrapping stitches around the bottom needle and the top needle until I have 10 on each side. You'll see different ways of manipulating the yarn to get different orientations of the stitches on your needles. I'm going to show you the way that gets you the traditional Western stitch mount, which is this direction where the right hand leg is on the front of the needle and the left leg is the trailing end of the yarn. It's on the back of the needle. Okay, so I've got one stitch. I'm going to be fashioning stitches on the bottom needle from the top yarn and using the thumb yarn for the top needle. So they'll be twisting around each other on the back. Okay, so first I want to stitch down here. So I go up there and wrap it that way. And then I want that one on the top. This one on the bottom, top, bottom. You see I'm coming with the thumb yarn, I come up in between, over the back needle and down in the back to the slingshot position. Then I take both needles and I bring the finger yarn under, over, and then down between the needles that way. So the top, they come up in the middle, down at the back. The bottom needle, the finger strand, up at the bottom, down in the middle. So far I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top needle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the bottom needle. On the back side, you see I'm starting to get purl bumps. This is going to be the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so here's my last stitch. Was on the bottom needle, top needle up in the middle, over and around to the back, bottom needle, top strand, up from the bottom, over and down in the middle. So I'm wrapping the yarn the same direction on each needle, but this one goes from the outside to the inside, is one way of saying it, inside to the outside. But the point is from the bottom to the top on that needle, from the bottom to the top and back on that needle. How am I doing for count? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. One more. The bottom needle. Oops, the top needle. And then kind of twist the yarns around to lock that in place, and I'm going to hold on to my tail to keep these firm and so that I don't knit the tail. Okay, now, like you usually do for magic loop, I'm pulling out the needle tip I want to use for knitting and getting these stitches loose on the cable. And see on the back side, purl bumps. Okay. Now this equates to the tubular part of knitting a tubular cast on. I'm just going to knit these stitches, and they're not twisted. I'm knitting them the way that they open up, which is this way. Knit across. And those other stitches are down here waiting for the next step. So I knit across. This needle is done. Turn it around this way. Push this needle back so that the stitches are on the needle part, not the cable now. And this one I pull the needle out so the stitches are on the cable. And now I knit the stitches on this side. These end stitches are often kind of loose. And I knit across these stitches. I have now worked one round of knitting, and I'm back to the beginning. What I'm going to do next is what converts this to being flat. Okay, so kind of pull in the tail, snug up those little stitches. So get the needle in working position. There we go. Get not the tail, but the working yarn. We're ready to go around that way. But what I'm going to do, let me get this tail out of the way in a different over here. I'm actually going to fold this fabric up like this and make a tube. Now I can go to my project needle. I'm going to be working flat, so you can use a straight needle, you can use another circular, double points, whatever you're going to use for your project. So the yarn is coming from back here. This is the next stitch. I'm going to knit, but see I've got both stitches near both tips. So I'm going to knit this one and off, and then I'm going to purl this one and make sure I'm not using the tail. Purl this one and off. Knit this one and off. Purl this one and off. See, I'm accumulating stitches over here. Oops. This is a little fiddly, just being careful not to drop anything off. Keep the knitting yarn, the working yarn here in between the needles. Knit that one, purl this one. Oops. Let's pause here, kind of see what we're getting. Okay, so we're getting knitting that wraps around, and we're getting a 1x1 rib is what we're getting. Knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and the stitches just wrap around the bottom to be 1 by 1 ribbing on that side. So, and I could just finish the row, and but we'll stop here. So I now have a tube of knitting, a small tube, and the stitches united into a 1 by 1 rib. If you wanted to, you could run a strand of elastic through there, or because you really have a tube, an open tube of knitting. Let's pull this out and you can maybe see that. No, it's really kind of too small to see. But, okay, that's one way to do an invisible tubular cast on for 1 by 1 rib that's going to be knit flat, starting with Judy's Magic cast on in the round.